My name is Jude Menes. I am a lawyer here in Dallas, Texas, born in Nigeria, but have spent most of my lifetime here in the US.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started with this episode.
I presently represent mostly US and European companies that do business in Africa and the emerging markets. So my focus as a lawyer is really to help US companies, European companies, Asian companies, to help them succeed in Africa by eliminating those bottlenecks and those things that stop them from success. In doing so, the goal also is to enrich Africa by driving worthy and quality investments. You know, they always say that Africa needs investment. Yes, we do, but we need the good ones, and we need quality investors, and we need investors that are willing to give us good contracts, investors that are willing to know that everybody has to come out in a win-win situation. We don't need to be recolonized in an economic way because colonization can happen in different ways. So what my firm and our colleagues and my partners, what we do is really to make sure that when investors and companies show interest in doing business in Africa, our goal is to make sure that whatever they do is fair, not only to themselves, because they are in need to make money, but we also want to make sure that they are fair to Africa, that our people benefit from the investment. So I think in a nutshell, that's really what we do.
Thank you so much for that. That is very important, especially in line with the conversation that we have today, just now, which is about the influence of the Russian-Ukraine conflict or war, as it were. So let's start with, how do you even see what is going on in the Russian-Ukraine environment, the war that is going on there? What is your take on it?
Well, you said it all when you said that it affects us all. It affects everybody directly, not just indirectly. The world has moved on from where every country and every region used to be so segmented. Right now, you can actually look at the world as a unit. If something is happening in the US, it affects everybody. If something is happening in Africa, it affects everybody because the world is now so interconnected. Okay, look at what is happening to gas prices now, fuel. Look at what is happening to the prices. Look at what is happening to the supply chain. See, the world just came out of a very serious economic downturn because of the pandemic. And now we got this war that's just happening. So it's really a blow to the world. I just hope that the blow is not so much that some countries and some continents will find difficult to absorb. I hope that especially Africa, that we will be in a position to realize that, look, the world is going to change a bit when this is over. So we have to now start getting ready to do the necessary things to make sure that we don't get hurt as much as we should have when the whole thing is over, because investments are going to be driven towards Ukraine and the surrounding countries. So we have to really be ready for that happening.
It's true, at the end of the day, we are going to have to look for how it affects also us as nations, because in terms of food production, it becomes very important what is happening in Ukraine, because a lot of African countries are complaining of a shortage of wheat, shortage of or flour, of course, that is needed to produce bread and other food in the African countries. And this have affected our country because you and I, we are both coming from Nigeria. So in a particular way, we are interested in the effect that he have on us. Before we get there, I'm sort of curious. Something is happening. Do you think somebody could have a blame in what is going on in Ukraine?
With every conflict, it's always easy to blame someone, which is what is going on now. Russia is blaming NATO and Ukraine. Ukraine is blaming Russia. Here's my take on it. My take is everybody is to blame, because by the time you get to where you start throwing punches, where you start drawing out the guns, then that means that diplomacy has failed. And when something fails, it's wrong to blame one person. When something, it takes two to tango, And remember what Bob Marley said. He said, "He who fights to run away will live to fight another day." If both parties had remembered that, look, there has to be a way to make this war go away. There has to be a way to make sure that this war didn't happen. Then we wouldn't be where we are today. It's easy to blame someone. It's very easy. But then it takes, if two people sat down, I remember what we say in negotiation. We say in negotiation, never stop talking. Never stop talking. And also remember that by the time you reach a deal in any negotiation, it's going to be a deal that I don't like 100%, you don't like it 100%. That's the deal. I think somehow the parties just gave up. They just stopped talking, and they forgot that in the end, lives will be lost. Look at the number of people that have died, not just on the Ukraine side, on both sides.
Yeah, even
people
in
are
Russia
dying.
too. Yeah, please
Yeah,
go.
people are dying. People are dying. And I can bet you that these people who are dying never had a say as to whether there should be war or not. That's the sad part about war. That the guys who actually die are the people, the soldiers, for one, they never got to vote whether we should have war or not. The civilians who died, they never got to make the decision whether we should have war or not. But they are the casualties. So to me, it's unfortunate on both sides. I really wish that both sides had stopped they should have done something, to keep talking, find a way. If we avoid it, if we can do well to avoid it today, then we'll have another day to talk.
Do you think that was even a kind of a serious effort to make sure that the conversation actually go on, or it was just a way of one threatening the other? Because of course, the war between, it's true that what we are seeing playing out today is seeing that Russia is actually having a very tough hit in it. But I don't think that reflects the strength of both sides, no? So what I'm saying is that whether the conversation was actually there, so that at a point it broke.
Personally, I don't think that a good conversation was made. I don't think a good effort was made. Now, I know that if you go to Ukraine, they'll tell you that, yeah, we did everything possible. If you go to Russia, they'll say we did everything possible. You go to NATO, they'll say we did everything possible. I just didn't see it. For one, I felt that when all these things were happening, I felt that Russia and Ukraine should be talking directly. When something is going to affect you directly and is going to affect your people, you don't talk through NATO. You don't talk through other countries. You go there, you sit down and you talk. You look each other in the eye and you talk. And I didn't really see them talk directly. So I think that both parties were just doing a lot of posturing to show that, look, if we go to war, we are going to come out victorious. Or if we go to war, you are going to suffer. We are not going to suffer as much as you think we will suffer. I think that was much of what I saw leading up to the war.
All right, that is something that I found just now. I'm gonna show it to you. I think this is mm, yeah, this is from the Economist, and
Mhm.
it said that why the West is principally responsible for the Ukraine crisis. Because of course, when you were talking just now, you made mention of the fact that there was really no strong conversation that is going on there between Russia and Ukraine. Because now we are looking at two entities that are very close to each other. We didn't really need much of foreign interference there to make peace. These people have basically been brothers for a very long time. So why do we need so much interference from outside to stir up the anger? And I look at the destruction is so much. Then even one person to die is costly. And look at all the people. Look at how many millions of Ukrainians that are driven outside, and it is horrible. I mean, why is it really necessary that other people need to stir up the anger, then putting the situation where it is today? NATO,
Oh,
for
I, oh,
example.
oh, I think they do. I really think they do because, uh, just like I said, I didn't see a lot of talk or negotiation between Ukraine and Russia directly. These folks were brothers. They were both part of USSR at some point. So they know each other better. So they should have really talked directly. Instead, what was happening was NATO was saying a lot of stuff. And really, if you ask me, NATO really shouldn't have said anything because we know what Putin thinks about NATO. We know what kind of relationship he has with NATO. The relationship is not so good. So it's kind of like I'm having a problem with you, and you go and invite somebody that I don't care for to mediate or to talk. How do you think I would feel under those circumstances? I would definitely want to show that whatever happens, I will come out stronger than you. So that's why I think that, but then again, um, I, I've always believed that if there is war and you want to blame only one side, that's like taking a very simplistic view of the problem. It takes two to tango. Both sides should have done much better to stop it. I think so.
Do African nations have the right to say this is their position in the world without necessarily be aligned with what Europe say, what Europe believe is their right or believe is wrong or right?
The thing is, nobody wants to see another country invaded by a stronger country. Nobody wants to see that because I think that the world has come off uh, far from what it used to be, where you had empires, where one empire would just go around the world conquering the other. That's how we got to colonization in Africa. So we Africans, we don't like that. We don't like the fact that a superpower went and invaded a smaller country. But having said that, I don't think Africa should take sides. We should be neutral. You know what we say back home, that if you do something against the gods, it's not in my place to come and fight for the gods. The gods know how to fight for themselves. Because
Beautiful.
if I step in and try to fight for the gods, the wrath of the gods may be directed against me when I didn't do anything. So really, we should be these folks are strong enough to where at the end of it they will come out fine. They will know how to settle each other. We have too many of our own issues to bother with in Africa. We should not be on the side of anybody. All we should be on the side of is, look, let there be peace. Let's stop the war. Whatever it takes to stop the war, let the war stop and let this kind of thing not happen again. It's not in our place to assign faults to anybody. Okay?
All right, that is wise enough to stand by. And I'm not going to drag the line further than that. All right, now let's look at what can be the possible legal implication, because now we are talking of how to drag investment to Africa. Now, looking at what is happening in Ukraine, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, what do you think can be the possible legal implication in Africa in respect of foreign investment and things like that?
For one, when you talk about foreign investment, like direct foreign investment, just like we have pointed out at the beginning, at the end of this war, resources will be directed towards Ukraine, which is, to me, it's unfortunate and sad because, I'm not saying sad because we don't need to rebuild Ukraine. I'm saying sad because for the past few years, direct foreign investment for Africa has actually been up and up. Africa, if you look at the tech industry, if you look at all industries, the Western world has begun to recognize Africa as the real next frontier, as the place where you can put money and get a lot more than you put, and as the place where your money and your investment will be stable. So we are really beginning to do well. But what will happen now is because there is need to rebuild Ukraine when this is over, people will now choose to invest in Ukraine and Africa will become second. So, you were talking about how does it affect? This is a direct effect on Africa because when those investments start getting rechanneled from Africa to other places, I mean, all the Western world, they are already putting a lot of money into the Ukraine area. More money will even be needed to rebuild the whole thing. So in a way, Africa is losing. The question is, what is Africa doing and what should we be doing now to cushion ourselves? And again, this is where it's also a sad situation because in our continent, we see large-scale mismanagement, we see large-scale corruption, we see large-scale fraud. Otherwise, what we should be doing now is, now that oil is at about 130 per barrel, $130 per barrel, we really should be cushioning ourselves. We really should be putting money aside to take care of ourselves because it's going to come down again. After the war, oil will come down and investments will be driven away from us. I don't know if our leaders are doing it, but that's what they should be doing. Our leaders should also be looking for alternatives. Sit down now and do the math. What kind of direct investment are we getting from the various Western countries? Okay, by the time the war is over, what would be happening? What kind of direct investments should we be expecting? How do we now begin to make sure we bridge the gap? Where can we look for to bridge the gap? What resources can we come up with to convince these Western countries that, hey, even if you are putting 80% in Ukraine, still give us 20%. These are things that we should be doing now. Are we doing it? I'm not sure because, like I said, we have our own internal problems. And those problems, those are part of the reason why we are where we are today. In terms of legal implications, I think we're already seeing the legal implications. Every country in the world, especially the Western world, they are sanctioning Russia and all that stuff. Because the deal is when you go and invade a sovereign country, it becomes a problem for everybody because everybody will be thinking it could be us next. See, that's the biggest issue that people are grappling with. It could be this country next. America could try to invade another country next. And that's really something that that needed to be stopped. That was part of the reason why United Nations was set up, so that these kind of things should never happen.
I like that part. It could be us. It could be us. I think that was one of the justification of Israel to develop a nuclear weapon because of what they suffered from the war, the Second World War, because they need to defend themselves so that it should never happen again. Anyway, I'm going to take this argument to where it really supposed to be, which is Africa, about us. We appear that nothing have happened to us. We are the only people who have no justification to arm ourselves. This is very important because now we are expecting that maybe foreign investment should come into Africa. But say they refuse to come to Africa, what are we going to do? Are we ready to do the necessary thing to protect ourselves, to defend ourselves, to provide food for ourselves? What if the war continues and food never comes from outside? Are we ready to survive? Or are we going to perish?
You know that one thing that even economists will tell you that unfortunately, most African countries and most African economies uh, have defied normal economic logic. Yes, because ordinarily, right about now, we should be looking for alternative resources. They say that it's during difficult times that people become more sustainable. So if we follow the normal economic rules and normal economic logic, Africa should be able to come out stronger because right about now, we should be looking for sustainable resources to continue ourselves without dependence on foreign countries. Look at what Europe is doing. They had been dependent on Russian gas. Now they are making alternative arrangements to get gas from somewhere else. See, when they put that arrangement in place, they will never need gas from Russia 100% like they used to need. You see, but are we doing it? Again, you go back to our leaders. Do we have leaders who are, I guess, up and up enough to sit down and say, look, let's do the math. Let's figure out how to fix things. Are our leaders even thinking ahead like 50 years from today? How many of our development plans go further to like 100 years from today? That's the question. Yeah, that's the question. You know, I guess you look at it, those of us in diaspora, all we do is we try to put out words and put out, hey, this is what we should be doing. Hopefully one day we will get a leader that really listens and say, let me find the right people and put them in the right places so that we can get something done.
You know, you see, it's really quite sad now because you imagine, say, maybe in Nigeria, a country like Italy is attacking Nigeria militarily. Do we really have a defense? I mean, can we boast of producing our weapon to defend the territory? Because I can tell you, if France is attacking Italy, Italy will be able to produce enough weapon to hold it until they can request for someone outside. This is 21st century, 2022. Do we really can we really say we can defend ourselves? We can't even boast of food. We can't feed ourselves. What are we lacking? We are just begging people to come and help us. I don't understand the logic.
That right there is the problem because, like you said, God forbid some superpower tries to invade us. There's really not much we can do except to do what some of our people already do now. They go on Facebook and say, America, come and help us. Or they go somewhere and say, Britain, why are you standing by and this is happening to us? And I'm like, excuse me. You got to do something to help yourself. Everybody, the world has come to where everybody should fight for himself or herself. But we just are not serious enough. I don't think our leaders are serious enough. I don't even think that our leaders are asking these questions that you asked. They are not even asking these questions, because if they're asking these questions to themselves, they will be troubled. Because even as you are asking the question, I became troubled, and I'm sure you are troubled because
Really?
you know the answer. You know the answer to the question. You know the answer. You know the answer. You know that they can just come and wipe us out, and it'll be like we never existed.
It's frightening. A simple thing could be, for example, in Ukraine right now, there are all sort of weapons that go to Ukraine thanks to different producers of weapons in Europe and other parts of the West. These are not weapons coming from the United States, which means every country in Europe know how to produce their weapon. Why can't Africa also learn how to produce that? Or is it a crime for us to know how to produce weapon? Or so that the United States will not say, they are producing weapon? Or so that we need to be buying the one that is coming from US? What if one day we do not do what the US want us to do? What if we say we want to be taken from Russia? What if one day we offend them? At that time, there is a war against Nigeria. Who is going to save us? We would pray?
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what people think. Well, it's a serious question. It's a serious issue, but sometimes people overlook the seriousness of it. People, we look at other countries to provide for us, and we forget that each country is basically in competition with the other country. If you are asking your competitor to provide for you, you have to remember that when they provide for you, they are going to do so with conditions. And they are going to do so based on how they like it done. So if they have grade 1 weapon and they have grade 2 weapon, they may decide that what they'll give you is grade 2 because they don't want you to use grade 1 to attack them. It's just, yeah.
It's normal, no?
Yes, it's normal. But these are things that our people just don't think about it. Our leaders just don't think about it because they are busy focusing on themselves. If they would just sit one day and think about the country, really think about the country, then they'll realize that, look, things have to change.
It's quite unfortunate because look at me. I did not receive any training. I don't have any military training. I didn't receive any inter training. But I know that tomorrow, if a country like France, if a country like Germany, if a country like Italy were to invade Nigeria, we will be wiped out.
Yep.
If ordinary me can know this, the people at the helm of affair should be building a very high wall of defense to make sure that we are ready, standing on our gate to identify who is coming in. Are you an enemy or are you a friend?
Well, unfortunately,
all right. Now that leads to another thing that responsible people should do, which is about food. Anyway, we're not even going to dig much about that, but about the economy. Does what is happening in Ukraine have any effect in terms of economy to African countries, say maybe Nigeria, for example, in any significant way?
Yes, of course. You know that Ukraine is usually seen as the food basket of the Western world. And not only the Western world, they also supply to Africa. Sunflower, for instance, a lot of things, sunflower oil, a lot of things come from Ukraine. And now we cannot get those things because we don't have them ourselves. We don't produce them ourselves. So it's going to be tight. And after the war, the richer countries will even scramble for these things. And we will just get the crumbs because really we don't negotiation power do we have to be able to say, "Hi, give us a greater share of the resources"? We don't. So it's a very serious. But here's the key thing. The key thing is that it shouldn't be like that, because Africa has almost everything it needs. Natural resources, most of the natural resources in the world are located in Africa. Agriculture-wise, our lands are the best in the world. It should not be like that. But we are just not doing the right things, number one. Number two, we are depending on our competitors to help us, which is the wrong way to look at stuff. Because our competitors will either say they will not help us, or they will help us with conditions, or they will help us according to what's good for them. And that's why we are losing out.
I never understand how we look like children, like infants, like people who need to be spoon-fed. Because how come we couldn't make plan for this? How come we couldn't realize that one day? It's quite strange, no? It's really strange.
I know. It's mind-boggling, because this is something that the average household here does for itself. Here, the average household in the US, they think about the future. They think about, what if there is snow tomorrow and I'm not able to go out for 3 days? How do we survive? What if something happens and mom and dad are not able to work? How do we survive? But in our place, our nation, the whole nation, the leaders don't think like that. It's a very sad situation. But like I said, we can't keep quiet. We have to keep, you have to keep talking about it. You have to keep discussing it. You have to keep bringing forth solutions. And hopefully one day we will begin to get the right leaders who will actually look at it and say, hey, even if we start to do the right thing incrementally, eventually we'll get there.
Well, I want to believe that. I have no reason why I should not believe in us. If I don't believe in us, then it will be very disastrous for me personally, no?
Yeah.
So I must believe in us. It's very important.
Yeah.
All right. Now, there is another thing also I would like to ask your opinion of. It relates to how the conflict itself in Ukraine is reported on the Western media. Of course, it's different from the way it is usually reported when there are conflict. Of course, there are a lot of conflict going on also in Africa, which of course, anyway, what is your take on that?
You're right. There is a big difference between the way the attention that this conflict has been reported in the Western media. But then again, you don't blame the Western media. What you do is you look at what I said before. The resources in the world, there are limited resources, and there are so many needs that you need those resources to satisfy. And you look at it as who controls what. If I'm in control of just like you now, you have the microphone now. I can only go by the question you asked me. If you ask a question and I decide to talk about something else, people will be like, he is foolish. You see what I'm saying? So the point is, the Western media, they control their resources. Therefore, they control what they say. They control what they put out. If something is happening in the West, you don't expect them to report it differently. You don't expect them to report it the same as they will report something that's happening in Africa. My brother, if my house is on fire, I'm going to talk about it differently from the way I'm going to talk about it if your house is on fire. That's just a fact of life.
That is common sense too, maybe.
That's just a fact of life. So if we want stuff to be reported our own way, We should get our own media. Remember when the last time we talked, I told you about my firm's online magazine. I said the reason we started the online magazine is because we want to report things the African way. We want to put out what we want people to know about Africa, not what other people want people to know about Africa. So Africa should control the narrative as to this is what I want you to know about Africa. In Nigeria, these are the cities I want you to know about, because that's how it is here. There are some cities here in the US that you've never heard of them before, but they are here. There are things that are happening here that you've never heard of before, but they happen. So we should control our own narrative, because when you control your own narrative, then you are controlling your own destiny.
Information is power.
Yes.
Information is power.
Yes.
All right. Now, I was reflecting also on another thing, relating to a recent court judgment in Nigeria, where a governor was sacked for a changing political party. As a lawyer, what is your take on that? Because, like I said before, we are concerned about what is happening in our country. So please share your thought on that.
I heard about that decision. I think it's about a governor defected from his party under which he was elected and moved to another party. I think he moved to a ruling party. And the moment he moved, his deputy moved with him, and all the state legislators moved with him. And then somebody went to court and said to the judge, to the court, look, you have to sack this governor and all these people because they left the party that elected them. When I first heard about it, my first thought was, and then the judge, by the way, agreed and said, because you left the party that elected you, now you have to vacate the governorship office and all these other offices. So when I first heard of it, I was disappointed. I felt like, well, this judge is wrong, because when you look at it, it should be that you are electing the person and not the party. But then when you begin to give it a critical analysis, and when you begin to move away from the simplistic explanation to the more critical explanation, you begin to see that what the judge did was right. And perhaps that will be the beginning to solving one of our biggest problems in Africa, because the biggest problem we have in Africa is they follow whoever is in power. So even if I was elected as an independent, the moment I got elected, I would declare and say, now I am with the president's party because I need things from the president. It's not good. It's one of the things that's killing our democracy, because it's very difficult then for us to know who stands where. Yeah, you can look at it and say, well, we elect people as individuals, but every individual is elected on the platform of a party. And every party has their ideologies. People are every candidate is supposed to belong to a party based on the ideology of that party. In the US, for instance, you will never find a Democrat doing the things that are in the books of the Republicans. It's not like that, because your party dictates really what you do, what you follow. And the people who elected you based on the fact that they hold the same ideologies of your party. Let's say now you are in Texas. You are in Texas, everybody knows that Texas is a Republican state. The people who elected you in Texas to be the governor of Texas are Republicans, because you didn't get there based on the votes of the Democrats. So now once you get there and you decide to say, I'm no longer a Republican, I'm a Democrat, in a way you are denying the people who elected you, because they elected you based on the ideology, based on the fact that when you were running, you were telling them, look, I'm going to do the things that are dear to you as Republicans. I'm going to do the things that as Republicans, these are the things we believe in. So really, I think that perhaps this judge has started a legal revolution that will put our people back to something, so that if I got elected as a governor for a particular party, before I decide to defect to another party, I should think twice. I should know that there are consequences. But right now, there are no consequences, because look at that, for instance, that what happened in that particular case. What happened, the governor defected and all the state legislators defected. So there is effectively no opposition. You see what I'm saying? So now whatever they want, they do. If tomorrow a different president comes to power from a different party, they can just move to that side and nothing happens. So so I think maybe it's a good thing. Let's see what happens.
Like kind of an idea, the idea of prostitute. No, they don't have any.
Well, that's what it is. Political prostitution. That's what it is. Unfortunately, and you know, and I don't. Sometimes when they do that, when they move from party to party, I'm like, wow, do these people even that time when you were telling us that, for instance, PDP is the worst party on earth, did you mean it? Were you just telling it to us because that's what you want us to hear? So if PDP was the worst party on earth yesterday, what has changed today? Yeah, think about it. Think about, for instance, in the US, how often do you hear that a Democrat switched to become a Republican? That's like once in a century. It doesn't really happen often. But in our place, it happens every time. People jump around. So I think that, yes, while it's tough that it has come down to having a court make them do the right thing, perhaps that's the only way.
But constitutionally speaking, legally speaking, is it even right or wrong? I'm not talking of morally now, but legally speaking, is it really permissible, or is it the constitution of the party that is not allowing it?
Well, that's the thing, you know, I would not claim to be a constitutional lawyer of Nigeria. I would not claim to know very well the party constitution or all that. But one thing you have to understand is this. You have to understand the role of the courts. You know, that's why there are what they call case law. There are two ways basically to make law. The one way is the legislator can make law. The other way is through case law. The courts can make law, because the court is really, in a way, the moral conscience of the country. That's why you get the Supreme Court to sometimes look at something and say, well, this is the right thing to do it, and this is the right way to do it, and they make law. So in a way, it's not wrong for the court either way to come in and say, look, we've been observing what has been going on. This is wrong. And in a good country, what will happen then is, if the legislature, the laws made by the legislation is not necessarily in line with it, they'll now go and amend the laws to be in line with what the case law says. You know, so I don't know what the constitution of the parties say. I don't know what the Nigerian constitution say, but I would guess that the judge, either whatever he must have seen that what his ruling is not against the constitution, or the constitution may have left it open to where a judge can come in and fix it, because the Constitution doesn't normally fix everything. Well, we'll see what happens, because that decision came down from the lower courts. So I will think that this will go up to the Supreme Court, and we'll see what happens at the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court upholds the decision, I can tell you that will definitely put an end to the kind of prostitution you see where people are elected on one platform and then they move to the other, or they are here and tomorrow they want to be there. That will put an end to it, and hopefully that will fix that problem, so that when I campaign and tell you that, hey, I'm anti-abortion, for instance, then you know that I'm anti-abortion. It's not tomorrow, the next day, I jump to the other party who is pro-abortion and stuff. It just doesn't make sense that way.
Your A should be your A, and your B should be your B. It really should be very simple, no? Our politicians should live up to their integrity. We want to trust you, but live up to it. When you say this is who you are, be that. I know, of course, they are doing all this changing now because the election, they are preparing for 2023 election, so they are trying to reshuffle and all that. But okay, just be a man of integrity. You cannot be switching all the time. All right, I just brought that issue because it affects, it's something that is happening in Nigeria. I know that we're talking about the case of Ukraine and all that. Now, let's go back to that issue again. We are moving towards the conclusion just now. So what do you think as a people, as Africa, as nations in Africa, we can learn from the experience for what is happening in Ukraine? Because I think there is a lesson that we have to learn from here.
Well, I think we have to know that things happen. That's really, how, like they say, things happen. We would have known that Ukraine could be invaded, because this is full-scale invasion. It's not like what happened in 2014, where they just, said, oh, this part of Ukraine are Russian speakers. They want to join us. They want to succeed. Therefore, we'll support them. No, this is basically, look, we are coming in, we are taking over. Who would have known it will happen? But now we know. Now we know it can happen. So we should be prepared. We should always be prepared. How do we get prepared? One, we have to start doing things that are sustainable, things that if it happens to us, we'll be able to take care of ourselves for a very long time. I'm not sure that we are doing it yet, but hopefully we'll learn our lesson.
Like you said, though, we are relying on the competitor to support us.
That's the
but
problem.
Only children will do that, though. Only children will do that. Like Nigeria is building its railway. He will want people that is competing. Please send us the one we are no longer using. Instead of saying, okay, now let's go to the institution that developed trade. At least we are not able to do it yet. Let's send some expertise abroad to go and learn it. Then we will build it here so that when it's spoiled, we can then repair it. Instead of saying, let's go and buy. But how much do Nigeria have to buy everything? We need to construct, no?
It's not possible. That's part of the problem we have. It's impossible to buy everything you need.
What will be your final message here in regard to the conversation we have today, which relates to Russia-Ukraine conflict and how it affects us as a people? Please go.
Well, if I were to say anything really, I'll really say to the African youth, never give up, never lose hope. Because just like you mentioned, if other people are losing hope on you, you can never lose hope on yourself. African youths should know that the future belongs to them. I know that people have said this over and over, and it seems like, how can you be saying the future belongs to us when all these old folks are? Yeah, but if you keep believing that the future belongs to you, eventually you will take over the future. And another thing African youth should know is this: never neglect or overlook any other African country. Our destinies are kind of intertwined. We are all the same. If it's happening in one country, it's bound to happen in your own country. So this idea that, oh, those people in Uganda, those people in Nigeria, that's them. No, it's not them. It can happen to all of us. Any country is open, just like what happened to Ukraine. It can happen to any country. So really, I think that the future belongs to the youths, and the youth should really look further than what the leaders are looking at now. Because the leaders, I think they are just really, I think that there's a brick wall in front of the leaders. They are no longer seeing anything. The youths should look further, break down that brick wall, and look further than that.
Mr. Jude Menes, thank you so much for the conversation. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewafo. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode.